Hey, what's up, guys? We're back. It's the HPR Chronicles with Shakur and Smith.
What's up?
What's up, everybody? Today we're talking about apartheid, which is a good one. It's funny. I was talking to my friend on the way to pick you up, and she was like, "That's deep," you know.
Yeah.
But I have a really good thing that I studied that I'm gonna talk about. Anyway, it's a podcast about history, politics, and race from a pop culture perspective. We're going to try to break it down simple and plain so that you guys can understand it. For all of our viewers watching on YouTube, you know, you kind of see what we're up to. For all of our listeners on all the other platforms, you kind of just hear what's going on. So that's kind of cool, too. I always say I'm a filmmaker from Trinidad and Tobago, and I've traveled a lot, and I've always had a love for history and politics.
Yes.
And my friend Chris here, a.k.a. Crispy, is a veteran of the Army Reserves that works for the VA with a passion for history and politics. It's about truth, like we always say we're not pro any race, just pro truth. If the truth offends you, we're sorry, not sorry. You know what I mean? So that's our usual intro spiel. So I'm going to jump right into it. What are you doing next week, Chris?
Next week I'm going to talk about the myths of slavery.
Oh, okay, cool.
But just a real quick, I wanted to say happy Juneteenth.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's
June
right.
19th.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what that is about, then you're not watching the podcast regularly.
Exactly.
And if you want to know, watch the podcast because we have it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we talked about Juneteenth and all that good stuff. So one of the things I always say that I love about this podcast is that it allows me to learn stuff that I had just heard about coming up, but then because of this podcast, and we always want it to be factual, I get to learn about things that I've heard about throughout the years, but I really get an in-depth understanding of it because I have to study for the show.
Yeah.
And it's funny, guys, we had a topic yesterday, and you know, it's just a testament to how we want to be consistent and bring you guys factual information. And we both found some inconsistencies in this topic and actually decided not to do it. And maybe Crispy will touch on it next week, what I'm referring to. But yeah, if we find topics that they're inconsistencies, we probably won't touch it.
No.
You know what I mean?
We'll talk about it in a different way.
Yeah, we can talk about it in a different way.
But we're not going to actually
try to spew facts about it
and
all that stuff.
It's not real. It's not real.
Yeah, but it's not real. It's not real. Yeah, man. So let's talk about the South African apartheid, which is very similar to what happened here with the civil rights movement and the racism and Jim Crow. And to me, after what I've studied, it's just a version of Jim Crow. You know what I mean? So what I've done actually is, and I probably shouldn't tell this little secret, but I think because this is unlike my other podcast, Relationships, Romance, and Propaganda, I think because this stuff is so factual, you know, so basically what I did was just wrote my show in my own word.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's basically what I did. So I studied all this stuff and just wrote it in my own words.
Got it.
You know, so that our listeners on iTunes and everywhere else, it just sounds like we're talking. But
instead of just reading.
Yeah, people that are watching us, they'll see them, but it'll still sound cool or whatever. So yeah, let me jump into it, man. South African apartheid, and what I'd like to do too is, before I get into it, I just saw on the news not too long ago about the land conflicts that's going on right now. And now I know why after studying today and last night, you know? So yeah, let me get into it. So apartheid is the name of the racial system that was created in 1948 by the National Party that was in power in South Africa until 1994. The word apartheid, which literally means apartness, was a violently repressive policy designed to make sure that whites, who made up 20% of the nation's population, would dominate the country.
Damn.
That's first of all. I didn't even know the word meant apartness. You know what I mean? That's what the word actually means. So, sorry. Even though apartheid started officially in 1948, the practice of racial discrimination has deep roots in South African society. In 1788, Dutch colonizers started establishing laws and regulations that separated white settlers and native Africans. These laws and regulations stayed in effect after the British occupation in 1795 and soon led to the forcing of Africans into certain areas that would later be their so-called homelands. In 1910, the year that all of the formerly separated Boer republics, and I actually looked that up for you guys, the Boer republics, sometimes also referred to as the Boer states, were independent, self-governed republics in the last half of the 19th century, created by the Dutch-speaking inhabitants of the Cape Colony and their descendants, variously named Trek Boers, Boers, and Voortrekkers, in mainly the middle, northern, and northeastern and eastern parts of what is now the country of South Africa. So if I could just read that again. In 1910, the year that the formerly separate Boer republics united with the British colony to become the Union of South Africa, there were almost 300 reserves for natives throughout the country. So basically, the Dutch and the Brits teamed up and formed this nation of South Africa, and then they had 300 reserves set aside for the natives throughout the country. Kind of like how we talked about what happened in Israel, how they just put them in certain sections.
Okay.
The exact same thing.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying? So by 1948, Dr. D.F. Malan, the main architect of apartheid, led the National Party in the first campaign that centered on openly racist appeals to white unity. They promised that if they got elected, they would make the reserves under the joint fundamental principles of separation and trusteeship permanent. The National Party swept into office, winning 80 seats, mainly from the Afrikaner voters. And basically what an Afrikaner is an African-speaking person in South Africa, especially one descendant from the Dutch and Huguenot settlers of the 17th century. So they call them Afrikaners, basically the Dutch settlers that came.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
But they do speak African.
Well, they speak Dutch.
They speak Dutch. Okay.
Yeah. So basically to rehash that, Dr. Malan, he was the main architect of the apartheid, and he led the National Party in the first campaign that centered on openly racist appeals to white unity.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So when they did it, the National Party swept the apartheid into office, winning 80 seats compared to the 64 seats of the United Party. So the people that wanted the racism and the apartheid to rule won.
Yeah.
And the people that were running, that's what they promised them.
Gotcha.
Like, if you vote for our party, we're gonna make sure we separate and do this apartheid thing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So after the National Party won, the new government instituted a number of policies in the name of apartheid, which was made to ensure the survival of the white race and to keep the different races separate on every level of society and every facet of life. One of the first laws they passed was the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act in 1949, which outlawed marriage between Europeans and non-Europeans. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So if you were in the town in South Africa back then,
Yeah.
and a hot European girl happened to like you, you weren't European, it was literally against the law for you guys to actually connect and talk and vibe and create a relationship.
Okay.
That's craziness, man.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
kinda
But
like
it's the same thing.
too.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. It's the same thing that was done here.
Good point.
The next year, new laws banned sexual intercourse between Europeans and non-Europeans.
New laws?
Yeah. Right. So they had a law against that. So if you saw a hot white girl back then, you couldn't smash.
No.
I mean, I'm making light of it just to have some fun on this podcast, like I said. But I mean, it was serious, guys, back then, and girls that are listening. Wow. So if you're a European chick and you happen to like, some flavor of like the darker complexion, you couldn't even do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. You couldn't even do it. It was literally against the law. Anyway,
gotcha.
So then in 1950, the Malan government passed the Population Registration Act, which categorized every South African by race and made people carry a card at all times stating their racial identity.
Damn.
This law was later modified in 1952 by giving out reference books. Instead of the identification passes, if you were caught without your reference book, you were fined or put in jail. So basically, if you walking around and you don't got your reference card on you, saying what you are, fined or put in jail.
And
that's crazy.
And it's probably covering.
They took it there in South Africa, man.
Like, so if you have a light-skinned, you had to prove where you know, I mean, or obviously you probably were automatically put down as being black or something, or non-European. I don't know.
Right. That's a good point. I wonder how they actually did it. How did they separate? Well, if you were light-skinned but just didn't look completely European, or either they had a special card for you saying what you are. And
that's a good question.
That's crazy, man. Wow. Anyway, so I'll keep going. So then the Group Areas Act of 1950, and see, as you know what's funny, Crispy, this stuff reminds me a little of the Jim Crow stuff you talked about in that one episode, but just a South African version of that. Yeah. So the Group Areas Act of 1950 was the main part of apartheid in South Africa. This law marked off areas of land for different racial groups and made it illegal for people to live in any but their designated areas. Thousands of Africans were uprooted and moved into racially segregated neighborhoods in cities or to reserves that ended up being called homelands by the 1970s. So then they had a law for that, pushing everybody out and putting them in these reserves. You know what I mean? And these are laws that they just created. Just because they could, because they came and colonized and they brought guns and everything else.
Well, and that's when they had the seats to the control of whatever. So whatever laws they wanted to make, they easily probably
they did it. They passed. And even though these laws were unjust and inhumane, and you know what I mean, they still just passed whatever they wanted to pass, like it was nothing. Then with the Reservation of Separate Amenities Act of 1953. It's another one. Black workers that worked during the day in the white-only cities still had to use different public transportation, post offices, restaurants, schools, and even separate doors, benches, and counters.
Damn.
You know what I mean?
They went deep.
They went deep. So if you worked in the white-only cities, while you were there, you still had to use certain things that was only for you, just because you were a different skin color. And keep in mind, this is these people's country that was taken from them. That's the other part that's kind of deep when you sit here and you go over it. This isn't even your country. You came to someone else's countries and made rules to push them out.
Yeah, and now you just...
You know what I mean? Yeah, so here's another one. So to make matters worse, the Natives Urban Areas Act in 1952. Now, this act limited the category of blacks who had the right to permanent residence in urban areas, while Section 10 had granted permanent residence to blacks who had been born in town and had lived there continuously for more than 15 years, or who had been employed there continuously for at least 15 years, or who had worked continuously for the same employer for more than 10 years. Non-whites living in urban areas who did not meet these criteria faced forcible removal. You know what I'm saying? And then the Native Act in 1953, the Native Labor Act, placed more restrictions on the black majority in South Africa. Now, this one, this act, it was the act to provide for the prevention and settlement of native labor disputes or for the regulations of conditions of employment of natives. See what I'm saying? So even and one of the videos I saw, when they did all this, they would have the South Africans work for inhumane wages and all that, and treat them inhumanely. So then they created this law to prevent them from defending themselves in those situations.
From revolting or striking. Or
you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was really messed up the way they organized this thing, man, and set it up. So in closing, just on this, on just the research, 3 important movements challenged apartheid. The oldest was the African National Congress, which was founded in 1912. The Pan-Africanist Congress, which is also called PAC. The first one, the African National Congress, some may know it as the ANC if you've watched it on the news. And then the Pan-African Congress was PAC. Broke away from the ANC in 1958 and initiated its own campaign against apartheid. Both groups were eventually banned by the South African government and forced underground, where they began violent campaigns of resistance. In the late 1960s, the South African Students Organization, which was called the SASO, was formed. Today, it is known as the Black Consciousness Movement in South Africa, the BCM.
Okay.
So then, apartheid formally ended in 1994 with the first election, which allowed the participation of all adult voters. With that election, Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do remember that.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And then he ended up being in prison for how many decades? I remember when he got out.
Yeah.
It was
long.
decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we could do another podcast on that, guys, but, like I was saying before we started, it was just crazy to hear and see what actually happened. You know what I mean? And we can do another show on the colonization of South Africa too.
Yeah.
To see, because this starts at when they implemented and after they colonized and everything else.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happened before to actually get it to
that point.
to this point.
Yeah, because
You know what I mean? Yeah.
it's deep.
Did you have any questions or any comments?
I'm just dumbfounded that it's crazy to think something happens here very similarly to
Right.
and I don't know if there's people who had talked or the ideas were floated.
They actually
between each
did.
other.
Yep.
Okay.
And what's funny is when those inconsistencies came up with our original topic, I was going to cover that part of it, but I decided to just do it on apartheid. I don't know if you remember me saying that yesterday that I was going to cover it because there was some exchange of information that actually went on.
Okay.
Where they studied how to oppress a people after the colonization, and some ideas were shared. And I can't remember if America shared it with them or vice versa.
Right.
But I know for a fact some stuff was shared. Yep, I remember reading about it, seeing about it, and hearing about it. But I've never gone in depth to really learn about it, to actually present it to our listeners. But I will, because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would
what
be
they did. And
topic.
oh man, they had this sign I wanted to show you guys. I wanted to show you. It was like this crazy sign, and it was like it was very similar to those whites only signs that you would see here.
Yeah.
In the 60s, but way worse. And I can't. If I can pull it up on my phone. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone. It was crazy, man. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Let me read you this sign, Crispy.
Okay.
It's crazy. Go ahead. What were you about to say?
No, just I was gonna try to look it up on the laptop.
Oh yeah, you can. If you pull up apartheid, was it this one? Yeah, I think it was this one. Yeah, so it says, natives, Indians, and coloreds, if you enter these premises at night, you will be listed as missing.
Wow.
Armed guards shoot on sight. Savage dogs devour the corpse. You have been warned. Yeah, they had literally signs like that in certain villages and stuff. So you won't enter the white areas, the white only areas. There was another one too. It was yellow, and I was like, wow, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah, they had stuff like that, and to me, and if we could just talk about it, Crispy, for a minute, to me, it just seems like it was just a far more concise, brutal form of segregation. It's like they didn't pull no punches at all, and I think in America they kind of sugarcoated it, so to speak, even though it was concise too.
Yeah.
But it seems like in South Africa, they were just straight up.
Yeah. It seemed,
they were just straight up, this is what it is.
Yeah.
This what we doing. these are the laws. You know what I'm saying?
And they weren't, and like you said, they didn't sugarcoat
Sugarcoat it at all.
anything. Like,
no apologies.
You know, you will be missing if you.
Oh yeah.
And I know that
guard shoot on site.
And I know there were signs that said, you know, colors behind back or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, entrance here, but it wasn't. I mean, and then I do remember there were signs that said no colors allowed, like even in the whole city.
Right.
But you kind of just knew, as opposed to the fact that someone had to say it.
Yeah. And this is a yellow one I wanted you to see. For use by white persons only. And for our listeners on YouTube, Sione will show me how to copy these pictures and flash them on the screen so you guys could see them. But it says for use by white persons, these public premises and the amenities thereof have been reserved for the exclusive use of white persons by order of provincial secretary. You know, then they have it in Dutch down here. For all the Dutch settlers and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was just like some real, man, yeah.
And it is amazing to think that they went into someone else's country.
Yeah.
You know, however they felt they took power. And then natives, and then put them, like almost like how we do with Indians, how Native Americans were pushed, and put on lands that weren't really theirs to begin with, or all of it was theirs. But you know, like that's not where they originally. Well, they were more probably like roamers. They would herd or move from spot to spot, as opposed to just But anyway,
and in one of the videos I looked at it, they talked about how they saw South Africa as their country. You know, even though they had come from Europe. They're like, this is our country. And I don't know if you've been there. I haven't been yet, but I've seen photos. It's one of the places on my list to actually visit. Yeah. But it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's beaches surrounded by mountains, and it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I've seen some, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just very, very beautiful
and place. The funny thing about it is,
Johannesburg is usually what people see.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is after learning about this, because I've always wanted to go to South Africa, but after learning about this, I have a slightly different view, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, what's the state like today? Like when you go there, how do they look at progressive, normal blacks?
Apartheid is not there.
I know that, but it's just like when you go to, say, South Carolina. When I was there for my TV show shoot. Yeah. Because South Carolina was one of the most, racist states.
Alabama too.
Yeah. So when I went there, even though it's been over, I still felt the brunt of that when we walked in restaurants and stuff. Okay. So my question is, after studying this stuff for the show today, I said, I wonder what it's like in South Africa. How do they act towards progressive blacks that are not from there, who was in America, who came back there to visit? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got
It'll be interesting. I've never talked to someone that's gone there. But it really made me question going there.
Though, but I've never asked them. Because at the same time, it's like, apartheid is gone. But I don't, like there's part of me, like you said, I'm interested in going.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant too, you know?
Yeah, after reading this, I mean, I definitely want to do some research on it. Mm-hmm. Go, I don't know, look up TripAdvisor, I guess, I don't know, but and see.
I'm sure on the internet there's somewhere it's gonna give you
what the situation is if you go down there, because my whole point is if the segregation and racism was so blatant, how is it today when you go visit? I mean, is it one of them things, if I leave a bar late at night and some of the people from the old guard see me and they want to kill me, they'll just try and kill me? You know what I mean?
I do.
How is it there right now? Those are the questions, because it was so blatant.
Yeah.
And it didn't end that long ago.
You can't make, again, it's just like here.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, civil rights didn't start until 64.
Right.
So a lot of current races, or people who felt the way before 1964 are still alive.
That's what I'm saying.
So yeah, I don't know the answer, obviously, but I would definitely do my research, and I'm sure there's, I don't know, I would do research, because I don't even know, like, is it good to be in an area where you are with everyone else that looks like you? But, how is their standard of living? Are they going to look at you and go, I still like, I want what you got?
Right.
Or, as opposed to someone who's just going to be killing you because of your skin
color. Because of your skin color, which is what they used to do back in the day there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I would definitely have a guide and stuff.
Yeah, most definitely, man. That's just.
But
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I just didn't know that it was that terrible there. I gotta know someone in the industry who has gone there, and I'm sure there's YouTube videos too about visiting South Africa.
Like I said, I know I've met a few or talked to a few, but it's hard to want to really talk about that.
Yeah,
because most of them are young, so I don't know if they really know what it was like. So
yeah, wow.
But to think a country that goes through that ends it, and then their first president is Nelson Mandela. That says a lot in a way, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where with America, went through everything, and Obama wasn't until 2008.
Yeah, 2008, right?
Yeah,
2008 to 2016.
Yeah. So my point is, even though it took till 1994 for it to truly be done, he got elected right then. Shortly after.
Right.
So the people knew it was wrong.
Now, did he? I can't remember. Did Mandela get elected before he went to prison and got put in prison? Or
no, it was
after.
Yeah.
He got out, and then he was the president for so many years. Then he died not too long ago.
Correct.
Yeah. Then they talk about this whole Mandela effect thing that I've looked up. You know about that?
No.
Sione knows about that, the Mandela effect.
Okay.
You guys look that up, the Mandela effect.
Oh, okay.
But it has nothing to do with apartheid, but it's just something to do with Mandela. It's pretty interesting.
Okay.
You never heard of it?
I'll be looking it up right now.
Seriously?
No.
Yeah, look up the Mandela effect, guys. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanna say about this topic. I don't think so. Like we always say, man, you guys do your own research. Check it out. If this sparked your interest and you'd like to know more, the information is out there. And thanks again for checking in with us. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can always email us at rptalktruth@gmail.com. You can leave your comments in the description below. And I want to thank all our listeners on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify and Google Play Music and Stitcher and Buzzsprout and all the cell phone podcast apps. Leave us some ratings, give us some thumbs up and stuff like that. And again, if you have any questions or comments, don't forget to leave them in the description. We'll see you guys next week. And do a little research on South Africa before you go. It's a beautiful place. I definitely want to go.
Yeah.
But I want to do some research first. But I think I want to do Egypt first. I think I want to do Egypt and Ghana first. South Africa would be probably last on my list. I want to visit some of the safaris, Kruger National Park. Love the wildlife.
Okay.
So South Africa is on the list, but it'll probably be last. And maybe when you go to some of those other places, you can find information about South Africa, because I'm sure those natives know. Like, yeah, man, it's fine. You can go. I know it was bad back then, but it's cool, know. But so my plans are definitely do some of the other countries first.
Okay. Yeah.
And do my ancestry DNA too, and find out exactly which country I'm from, and also visit that.
Yeah, that would be
country.
Great.
Yeah, that's something I want to do as well. So anyway, guys, that's the HPR Chronicles with Shakur and Smith. Thanks again for checking in. We'll see you guys next week. And once again, like Crispy said, happy Juneteenth. Look that up. Listen to our podcast on that so you can see what that's all about as well.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
And we out. Peace.
All right, peace.